Hello everyone and welcome to episode 6 of my podcast, Book and Story World with author Priya Grewal. Thank you to everyone who's listened to my previous episodes, and for anyone who's tuning in now, welcome. So I have decided to read the second story from my horror trilogy, Three Tales of Terror. For this episode. So in my first ever podcast episode, I read the story Terror at Nighttime from Three Tales of Terror, which is available on Amazon in paperback or Kindle. So for my sixth episode, I've decided to read the second story from that horror trilogy called The Cave of Pain. So let's dig in. Story 2, The Cave of Pain. Chapter 1. King Cosimo strolled happily around his palace gardens. It was nearing evening. There was a cool, refreshing breeze in the air. King Cosimo had been king of the land called Eldom for 40 years. Himself and his wife were queen as they had discovered and conquered the land they lived on. The world was full of different kings and queens who had discovered and conquered lands and began to govern them as people settled in their nations. King Cosimo and his wife Queen Yelta had governed the nation of Eldom happily during their reign and had a brilliant time ruling and governing the land. The people of Eldom lived happily in Eldom and loved their king and queen. The king and queen were happily married and had 2 sons and 1 daughter, all in their teenage years, called Prince Jezro, Prince Kerak, and Princess Gulva. King Cosimo and his wife Queen Yelta loved their children very much. The people of the nation regarded the king and queen as excellent role models and aspired to be as good a parent as they were to their children. King Cosimo smiled to himself as he settled on a bench in his beautiful palace garden. He smiled to himself as he looked at the beautiful plants in his garden, appreciating his existence and how much he loved life. As King Cosimo pondered how much he loved his existence, a hand suddenly placed itself on his eyes, leaving him in darkness. "Who's there?" King Cosimo demanded, not liking the feeling of someone placing their hands over his eyes, blinding him temporarily. "Get off me," Cosimo ordered. The hand didn't lift. "Yelta, is that you?" Cosimo demanded to know. Cosimo shivered as he felt a warm breath on his ear. Dread filled him as a raspy voice whispered, "No." Cosimo felt himself dragged from the bench and across the ground, crying out as he felt the ground underneath rip through his trousers. Chapter 2. Cosimo felt the hand lift off his face and he screamed as he saw a blue demon wearing a tuxedo walk around him. Cosimo could see he was in a dark cave. The cave was grey in colour. The demon glowered at him, showing his fanged teeth. The demon clicked his fingers and next Cosimo was hanging from the cave ceiling, both of his hands in a handcuff attached to the ceiling. Cosimo cried out again, the face of the demon petrifying him. Cosimo felt even more scared witnessing magic for the first time. The demon had merely clicked his long-clawed fingers and he was hanging from the ceiling. Terror filled Cosimo as the demon began to speak. "I'm Leprin," the demon growled, "and you're my prisoner. Forever." "No, please," Cosimo managed to cry out, still terrified of the evil, terrifying face of the demon. Leprin grinned at him. Leprin went over to a table towards the centre of the cave. Cosimo could see the table had different tools on it. Scissors, nails, saws, and screwdrivers. Leprin picked up the scissors. "Snip, snip," Leprin cackled to Cosimo, cutting the air in front of him. "No, no, please," Cosimo begged, terrified of the table of tools. The demon Leprin approached him, scissors in his hands, orange eyes staring at Cosimo, filled with malevolence. "You're never going to experience being popular or famous again," Leprin growled, snarling in Cosimo's face, getting closer to him with the scissors. King Cosimo screamed again as the demon got closer with the scissors. The demon grinned at him, green fangs getting longer. He clasped Cosimo's face for a second and laughed. The laugh echoed throughout the cave. Next, the demon held a part of the king's cheek together and cut off a slice of his skin. King Cosimo screamed at the excruciating pain. The demon showed Hazemo his blood on the scissors. Hazemo felt even more terrified at the sight of his own blood on the scissors. The demon grinned at him again. He moved towards the table full of the torture devices again. This time he picked up a screw and screwdriver. "To embed in you," the demon Leprin told Hazemo in a jolly voice. The demon approached Hazemo again. "Please," Hazemo begged again. The demon laughed. He placed the screw on Hazemo's arm. It stayed on his arm, lifted in place by magic. The demon bared his green fangs at Hazemo again, orange eyes lighting up in excitement. Dread consumed Hazemo, terrified about the pain he was about to experience. The terror of the demon's face was equal to the terror of the torture tools and pain. "Here we go," the demon cackled. The demon began moving the screw with the screwdriver, embedding it into Hazemo's skin on his arm. Hazemo felt horrific pain again. He screamed, never having felt pain in his life before. He screamed as he watched the demon grin and screw the screw into his arm. He continued to scream as he saw his blood drip on the floor. The demon stopped a few moments later, looking pleased. "There," the demon said. "All done." "I'll take a Polaroid picture so you can have a look," Leprin boasted proudly. Next, Hazemo watched in hopeless despair as Leprin conjured a Polaroid camera out of thin air. "Smile and say, 'Yes, pain,'" Leprin roared happily. Hazemo stared at the camera as the flash went off. Leprin retrieved the photo from the front of the camera. He looked over it. "Looks good," Leprin said jovially. Leprin showed Hazemo the photograph. Hazemo looked at the photo, dreading any more pain. Hazemo could see the screw planted in his arm. "Let me go," Hazemo roared. The demon looked at him, pretending to be dumbstruck. "Why?" Leprin asked. "Did you forget you are here with me forever? If I need to pop out, I'll just keep you rolling around on a mechanical torture device. I can conjure up anything with my magic. You'll feel constant pain. This is only the beginning. Your existence will only consist of my lovely face and inflicting pain on you with my torture toolkit for all of eternity. Make yourself comfortable and call this cave home." Leprin laughed loudly and joyously, reveling in Hazemo's pain and despair. "No!" screamed Hazemo, despair and hopelessness filling him. Chapter 3. Hazemo watched in dread as the demon Leprin decided which tool of torture and pain to use on him next. Hazemo hung from the ceiling, bleeding, blood dripping on the ground of the cave. He told himself in his head to get over the fear of the demon's face and think of something before the next round of pain via Leprin's torture tools began. Hazemo was struck by an idea. Leprin had mentioned Hazemo never experiencing being popular or famous again. "Wait!" Hazemo called out to the monster. The demon turned his head in surprise. "What is it?" he growled, looking up from the torture table. "I can make you popular and famous beyond your wildest dreams," Hazemo told the demon Leprin. "How?" Leprin replied suspiciously, frowning at Hazemo. "I can offer you a position in my government. You can run the country with myself and the rest of my government. I can introduce you to the people of my nation and all the government members. You said I'd never be popular or famous again. That's just being well-liked. I can teach you how to become well-liked by the people of my country. It's just being nice and friendly, not saying anything insulting. That's it." Leprin regarded King Hazemo for a moment, thinking on his words. "Go on," Leprin instructed. "I can teach you how to make the government members and all the people of Eldom love you and worship you. I'll teach you how to speak to them and how to treat them all. I'll take you everywhere with me and hold parties in your honor," Hazemo promised. "Popularity and fame beyond your wildest dreams," Hazemo pledged to Leprin. Leprin considered King Hazemo's proposition. He glanced back at the table of torture tools and furrowed his brow, thinking, "Popularity and fame beyond my wildest dreams with the government and people of Eldom," Leprin thought to himself. A moment later, Leprin replied. "Very well," Leprin agreed. "You've got yourself a deal." Hazemo held his breath for a moment, not wanting to ruin his escape. Hazemo faked a smile. "So, you just did this because you saw myself being popular and famous as a king?" Hazemo asked Leprin. Leprin smiled mischievously for a second. Not quite, he responded. What do you mean? Hazimo asked Leprin, wanting to discover the truth. You mean someone put you up to it? Hazimo asked the demon. The demon paused for a moment. Well, I guess I can tell you now, as you're going to give me popularity and fame. A better offer than the king who hired me gave me to torture you forever in this cave by inflicting pain and misery on you, Leprin told him. Hazimo waited for Leprin to continue with bated breath. Well, the king of Nuanda, King Naskin, hired me. He found me where I live in my secret demon land. He told me he was jealous of you and your good name. He said you were a good ruler who was loved by your people. Then he showed me having acquired a magical object somehow. He showed me in his crystal ball. I got jealous of the scene he showed me. For the first time, myself having seen fame and popularity as he mentioned, I got jealous of it and wanted it too. So he said he didn't just want to kill you, he wanted to make you suffer. He wanted me to scare you forever with my different appearance from your species and torture you by inflicting pain on you forever. He wanted to watch in his crystal ball and have a great time watching. He even asked for me to use magic for him to come in disguise as myself and to torture you when he was free to, Leprin told him. King Hazimo was dumbfounded. The king of Nuanda, King Naskin. I've barely heard of him. I've just heard him mentioned once or twice by a king of another nation I am friends with. Something about suggesting a marriage between his son and my friend's daughter, Hazimo told the demon Leprin in shock. The demon looked uncertain for a moment. I think that's what the problem is, Leprin replied, laughing a moment later. Hazimo regained his senses. He still had to escape the cave. Okay, here's what we'll do so I can make you popular and famous in Eldom, Hazimo pledged. First, if you could give me magic to teleport back to my castle, I can make preparations for you to enter my government. I can call a meeting and take you there with me first of all. Let me get prepared and meet me where you found me in 15 minutes. Then I'll be ready to make your life of popularity and fame begin, Hazimo promised. Leprin grinned greedily. Great, Leprin responded gleefully. Leprin clicked his fingers and King Hazimo felt himself released from the cuffs chaining him to the ceiling. Hazimo was floated down to the ground. He felt relieved, feeling his feet on the ground again. Leprin clicked his fingers again. You've got teleportation powers now, Leprin told Hazimo. Okay, thank you. I'll see you in 15 minutes as planned, Hazimo told Leprin. Leprin nodded his head happily. Hazimo thought of his castle and teleported into his bedroom. I have to move quickly, Hazimo thought to himself, glancing at the nail embedded in his arm, blood surrounding it. Hazimo got a trunk out from under his bed. He opened it and pulled out a large sword he had acquired earlier in life. Then he thought the words, "Take me to King Naskin of Nuanda." Next, Hazimo was in a palace hall. He stared in front of him and saw King Naskin sitting on his throne, a woman sitting on his lap and giggling. The woman turned to look at Hazimo, screamed seeing the sword and blood on his face and arm, and fled from the hall. Hazimo stared at Naskin. What the Naskin began, shock and hatred filling his eyes, face twisting into a venomous snarl. Teleport me right in front of himself, Hazimo thought to himself before Naskin could splutter another word. Hazimo popped up right in front of Naskin and lifted his sword and beheaded his head straight off his shoulders. Hazimo looked down at his head and kicked it in disgust. Next, Hazimo quickly teleported into his palace gardens that he was abducted from. He hid in the bushes, waiting for the evil demon Leprin to appear. King Hazimo waited for a few minutes, watching the spot he was abducted from. The demon Leprin teleported in front of the bench a few minutes later. Hazimo teleported behind Leprin right away and beheaded his head from his shoulders straight away before he could escape. Leprin didn't have time to make a sound. Hazimo looked in disgust at the head of Leprin. He picked it up, planning to show his wife Yelta, his family, and the people of Eldom their enemy from abroad. He teleported back to Naskin's palace, quickly taking his head for evidence. Hazimo walked back bloody and shocked to his palace in disbelief about being abducted and tortured as a result of popularity and fame and having a good name. Hazimo vowed to himself he would make a plan so that this could never happen to him or anyone he loved, along with the people of Eldom again. Okay, so that's the end of my story, The Cave of Pain, story 2 from 3 Tales of Terror. Turn the Page If You Dare by myself. So thank you for listening, everyone. All of my books self-published, 17 are self-published with Amazon KDP, one with Austin Macaulay, my first ever novel called The Creator. They're all available on Amazon in paperback or on Kindle. So thank you again to everyone who's tuned in and listened to my story, The Cave of Pain by Priya Grewal. Have a great week, everyone. My Three Tales of Terror is on Amazon as mentioned. Next week I will read the third story from Three Tales of Terror, so tune in for that. Take care, everyone. God bless. Have a lovely week. Bye.